We were gelled, man. We're a very gelled team who, and we were subscribing to, intensity. Like Francis Dunn is booting New Jersey's guy, right? One-time state champ. This guy had a broken femur the year before he was All-American. I love Jersey wrestling. I'm not from Jersey, but you wrestle in Jersey as a collegiate wrestler. You claim it.
What's up, everybody? John Forster here, breakdown from the barn. We got a great episode. We're going to talk some Rider wrestling today. We went back. Rider had these unbelievable teams in the 90s. We brought two-time national qualifier in, Gregg Kessler. Episode 40. We're ready to rock. How you doing, Gregg?
I'm doing great, John. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be part of number 40, man. You guys are slaying it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've been rolling, so this has been good. You're on, we're all about pleasing the fans, Drew Ezrin wanted to get you on, Maryland guy. We had a little contest and we said, hey, top people get to pick a show. He took second in the contest on the Final X, and I said, yeah, there you go, Gregg Kessler. Let's get him on. Let's talk some wrestling. We'll talk some Rider wrestling. So we're excited.
That's great. Yeah, Drew's good people, man. I know he spent some good time with you at the games, in Newark. So that's great, man.
Yeah,
That's
it was
great.
a good time. We had a couple suites there. It was a lot of fun. He's actually buddies with my neighbor who came up too. So we had a lot of fun at that time. So let's go back. A lot of people don't know, coming up in the 90s, a lot of people weren't born back then, believe it. We're getting old. But, Rider, they had some hammers. I mean, they were perennial top 10 team, small campus over there in New Jersey. And, they just produced these teams that were right up there, man, with Oklahoma States. And, they were competing. So why don't you tell us a little bit about those teams that you guys had?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm having flashbacks. You're talking about the 90s and, and people not being born. Sometimes I can't believe it was so long ago, but in the fact that I'm so close with the guys that were on those teams, I mean, I let them know, I'm going to be on this podcast. I'm going to be, talking about our old days. And yeah, they were great, amazing times and great teams. The what was created, in those 90s outside of making some, having some great tournaments and beating some great teams and having some great standout performances. We were gelled, man. We're a very gelled team who, and we were subscribing to, intensity. Don't just win 5-1, it was a mentality that our coaching staff was big on. And I was grateful to be part of those teams. Cause we were a bunch, man, for sure. And I know we're going to get into, it probably could go on for hours and hours, but yeah, it was an amazing time. And yeah, we were in the same breath as some really great teams because we could be dangerous.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'll say, I'm a Rutgers homer. I'm not going to lie. And, we had a couple national champs a couple years ago. Princeton got the national champ this year. They had someone in the final last year. But, but people don't know, and I'll admit it. It almost hurts me to admit it because, I didn't like Rider back in the day. But we'll get into that too. But, yeah, I mean, when you talk about 10 guys, right? Top to bottom. You always produce in that era. Those 10 guys were all legitimate All-American threats. So when you're talking about a team, 10 guys, you had a lot of All-Americans cranking out. You didn't get the national champ back then, but you talk about 10 teams. I really think that those teams of those Rider teams definitely are a step up from, the Rutgers and what Princeton's been putting out lately. I think they're going to get there, but, and it pains me to admit a little bit, but those teams of the 90s, they were just solid top to bottom, and just a tough guy in every weight class,
Yeah, well, a lot of respect to Rutgers and what's been going on, in New Brunswick, man. Like you guys are, getting those champs and things like that. It's great to see. I love Jersey wrestling. I'm not from Jersey, but you wrestle in Jersey as a collegiate wrestler. You claim it a little bit, but I love the fact that you bring up, the way things are and the way things change because I think that movement to the Big Ten and some great things you guys have been doing. I feel like we had that buzz, and we'll have that buzz again. I know it will happen. But I think it was funny, in those days it wasn't like, oh, we've got to get this, this 3-timer. We got to get this 2-timer from here, and we're gonna get. Oh, wait till this class comes in. In the early '90s, mid '90s, Taylor would recruit a guy with a really good hand strength, who was in the third, fourth in the PA states, and was just like, we want that guy. And I think that a lot of those teams were assembled with not so much, okay, they've got the accolades, but like, we're going to get this guy who took fourth in PA twice, and he's going to be a monster for us. And it was like, again, the way, the chemistry and how we just were kind of programmed together, and then creating that 10-team lineup, which, had to go to war, had to wrestle, those really good, teams back in those days. Like, you got that tough Minnesota team, and you just want to like stay alive during those days. Right. And it was just like, we were inviting that challenge. And I think that was a nice thing about those years.
Nice, man. Nice. Good stuff. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, wrestling for Gary Taylor? And like you said, he would put together these, amazing teams over the years. So why don't you tell us a little bit about his mindset and what he would do in that room?
Yeah, sure thing. So Gary was like, obviously like the consummate like technician, but I also think of him, and I always will think of him as like a great Renaissance man. Like he wasn't the most showy. He wasn't the loudest. He was just a very humble man, but also you had to respect him. You didn't have a choice. And we all got that. And he spoke. And when he spoke, he didn't speak loud, but you would lean in because you wanted to hear what this guy's saying. And when he was showing technique, he was all about little things matter. Like it would be a very small thing, the way you learn as a kid, just kind of blocking, just to stop the half going in, just little thing. He'd show this stuff, and we'd feel like, wait, we should all know to do that. But for whatever reason, he would do that. And we were just enamored by him because he wasn't that loud in your face. We had other people that could do that. Right. He coached every guy like one-on-one. Like he would work with you after practice. I had to cut a lot of weight, John. I was a 26-pounder. God knows what I weigh today. I don't look at a scale. I'm afraid of scales. But when I would cut, he would cut weight with me. We would run the pool area together. He would do that for anybody on the team. If Francis Dunn wanted to work on his leg ride, he would sit after practice. The guy lived in the gym with us, and great family man and good person, and just, and he was a doctor of the sport, man. This guy had his MD. And rest in peace, Gary Taylor. I mean, we love him. He's, it was his funeral, and it was just the way people spoke about him was just unbelievable. And not unbelievable that they were doing it, but just the feelings you got when you think about him, because again, he wasn't this showboat guy. I mean, we know how many wins he has, and what he's invested in wrestling. Yeah, it was an honor to wrestle for him. And I met him at high school nationals, like 17 years old, and I'm like sitting with this guy, and I'm like, dude, this guy doesn't seem like what I think college wrestling's supposed to be. And then I was like, man, so.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. No, I always,
man, I'm all red, man. I feel like they turned on the heat on me or something, man. That got me all flushed talking about
flushed out. Yeah. I mean, he was a great coach, and like I said, just cranking out those great teams. So let's talk about this. We got to address this white elephant in the room, how we got to know each other, right? So, I come into Rutgers and, started to have a little bit of success as a freshman, and this shows how good that team was, right? So I started to have a little, placed in a couple tournaments, nothing great, and then we get the home match versus Ryder, and, I'm supposed to wrestle Jason Nace, who's ranked pretty high nationally back then. He was ranked pretty high that year. And me and the Silver Fox, we had a game plan. Sachi, we had a game plan for him. Gary Taylor ducked him. He ducked me, so he ducked me. They send you out, who you were actually JV that year. The year before, a national qualifier. The next year, you're a national qualifier. So I didn't know who you were. I was like, I was pumped to get, a big shot to go against a ranked opponent. And then I get the JV guy. And that wasn't a good day for me, man. You took it too.
Are we going to edit this? We're going to edit all this JV stuff out, right?
We'll talk about it,
No, I'm kidding. I'm only joking. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, so that wasn't a good day for me because I got pounded by the JV guy, So why don't you talk about that match? And and then I was a little distraught, and then they're like, "Nah, that guy's really good, man. He's a national qualifier. He beat some good guys." But does show the how tough that lineup was. That you weren't able to work in that. I guess that was probably your junior year, right?
Yeah, I was a little fat. I was a little fat and happy that year. I tried to make 26 a little bit, but it wasn't working out.
Mhm.
Nace, and we weren't even butting heads. I don't even think we wrestled off that year. I was just like moonlighting at 26, 34, having a blast, figuring out what I needed to do to get back into it. But I trained my whole life for that match with you, John. And you've never you said you were dismayed that it was me, but I got out there and I just thought, look, this guy, I don't care what's going on right now. I just want to torture him right now, and
Yeah, it
I don't
wasn't
know
a
what the
close
final I
match.
don't
I
know what
know
the
that.
final
I know
score
I
I don't know what the
lost.
final score was. Dude,
Wasn't
listen,
competitive.
I
But
got
I
to tell you
learned, I
something,
got better, but it was good. It
John.
was a
John,
good
listen.
time.
The only thing I was going to say about that is the police report that I had to fill out after that, and I don't mind you pressing charges. It was fine. But I did. I paid for that for a long time. But thanks for bringing it up. No, it was awesome. But you know what? And then we had friendship after that. We ended up catching up later on in life, man. So
Yeah,
it's kind of
that's
cool.
all good. That's all good. But yeah, and we talk about, Jason Nace, obviously he's a hammer, you're just let's talk about some guys on that team. You mentioned Francis Dunn was an All-American,
Yeah.
Sean Scannell was an All-American, Leo Gill, he was I think he made the semis, he was an All-American, right? I mean, you guys had just a lot of tough guys on that team. Why don't you talk about some of those names and how some big things in their career?
I love you talking about it. It's like the honor. You're bringing up the honor roll, and you're
Mhm.
also bringing up my absolute best friends in the world. All those gentlemen you just mentioned, I've probably talked to two or three of them already this week. And we can't leave out John Carvalera, two-time All-American, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny, we talk about the old days, we talk about these great teams and the great people. But yeah, like all those guys you mentioned, I'm a historian of wrestling also. While I was a competitor, I was also a historian. I paid attention. I remember people's scores of matches. I don't know why. It's like like you're like almanac. We're like almanacs of it, right? But like Francis Dunn is Booton, New Jersey's guy, right? One-time state champ. This guy had a broken femur the year before he was All-American. Came back, dude. It was like, again, wild stories. Sean Scannell, Absegami legend, and George Florence, who another great dude from Absegami. And there's countless people. The
Yeah.
hard part about bringing up names is that you forget somebody. But like
Yeah.
Sean Scannell, his deal, right? He's one of the legendary coaches now,
Hmm.
in the way his high school career, all that great stuff. Leo Gill, probably, again, you were talking about my great friends, also best friends. I mean, this guy makes the semifinal of the NCAA tournament. Okay. The year prior, he beats almost everyone that was on the podium in 97. Now, I'm not a big name dropper, but if you look at the podium, you had guys like Mitch Clark. You had guys like Guerin from Lockhaven. You had guys like, Weldon, all these great wrestlers. And like Leo, I don't know if he beat Weldon, but he beat almost all those guys during that season and didn't place that year. Next year comes back, makes the semis. I
Yeah.
mean, head coach of Minnesota, another great wrestler. I think Leo beat him in the like prelims one year. I mean,
Yeah.
he could be that guy. And
Hmm.
also started wrestling when he was like a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
Like this,
Crazy.
his best sport's football. His best
Hmm.
sport was like ice hockey. And,
Yep.
it was just, again,
Hmm.
and then I can't not talk about like guys like Evan Dolan, right? You got
Hmm.
Evan Dolan, probably made it to nationals 3 times. This guy had probably the takedown record, just blow through doubles his entire career. There's so many guys to name. But yeah, those are big ones. And and anyone that was around those guys would improve and get better. Like we just had that like that secret kind of recipe for that kind of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah. Great group there. A lot of hammers. I know I watched them a lot on the mat. I did hear some stories off the mat too. You want to get into any of that? I heard that it was a wild crew off the mat too.
we had a JD team. I mean, we all every college has a JD team, right? The juvenile delinquent team. And we had powerhouse coaches. You got Dan Mayo in the room. You got guys like Adam Darengowski, another Jersey legend.
Laird.
You got
Yep.
John Hangy, current head coach. Like these are
Yep.
guys that are like making sure that we're doing the right things. But if
Hmm.
you came late to practice, Dan Mayo would say, yeah, Kessler, go ahead, do 500 pull-ups. Gil, make sure he's doing them. And that
Yep.
was like the rest of your afternoon, right? Like,
Yeah.
so stories are great. Like we had all of our stuff. I think the main thing was Rider wrestling team was, especially in the 90s, we were the big sport on campus. Basketball could bring in a school you never heard of and not, dude, there wouldn't be one empty seat in the entire place. We'd bring Ohio State in. There'd be like 6 girlfriends, maybe 5 grandmoms and I mean, there's literally 9 people there. But
Yeah.
we would beat Ohio State or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was
Hmm.
like wild. But yeah, the stories are really like, like they always were about the team and the fact that, yes, we were doing our best on the mats, off the mats, and then we were wild though. You put all these crazy people together. I'm sure it's like that at Rutgers. It can't be that much different. But what's the worst thing? Kids, I had a problem with one of the RAs. He has to, move out of the dorm. Yeah, stuff like that, but nothing
Yeah.
crazy. I
Nice,
think
nice. Yeah, we had some good thing social media wasn't back then for the Rutgers team too, because we
ooh,
had we had some wild ones too.
can you imagine that?
So let's talk about your career, Greg. You kind of two-time national qualifier. I know you got a bunch of brothers wrestling too. What, 9 state champs in that family in Maryland? That's pretty cool. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Any
Yeah.
good memories to bring up there?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're a big wrestling family in Maryland. So I can't even say I started off the crew. I have an older brother, Kevin, who was kind of got us into it. He was the first guy. He won a state championship, and he was a great little rec league wrestler. Was successful in Maryland, won some state titles. My middle brother, Steve Kessler, was a 4-time undefeated state champ, never lost a match, won 48-0, went off to JUCO, won a national title. And decided, he wasn't going to wrestle further. My youngest brother, Mike Kessler, also went to Rider, 4-time NCAA qualifier, beat some really good guys in his career. And, we just been longtime wrestlers. My father, rest in peace, got us into it. And he was, I missed him when I went off to school because I needed somebody like him. And then when I started to meet the guys at Rider and the coaches, and I would say, okay, all right, I'm in good hands. But, my dad was like the true catalyst of us. And, anybody that knew him, knew that, he drove us anywhere. If we were good in our neighborhood, if we were good in Maryland, if we were good in PA, he'd say, well, we got to go to Central Dauphin. We got to drive up here. Like he was one of those kind of dads. And he's like, you can't just be good in your zip code, right? You can't be good in your area. So
Nice.
so
That's
that was
awesome.
good.
And I think Mike beat Justin Gaethje, right? Is that the
Yeah, one year at Nationals, my youngest brother, and it's funny because Gaethje is a great wrestler. Obviously, we know who he is. He's a phenomenal athlete and killer. But you wrestle some guy somewhere, and like the way you have stories, John, I bet you have plenty of stories of guys you wrestle. And you're like, man, I didn't even realize 2 years after I graduated, this guy placed twice or 3 times. You know what I mean? You're like, man, this little dude from Bloomsburg I beat or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like it's a small big world there is, right? It's like wrestling's like amazing like that. And yeah, like we've had so many great moments and stories. And and it's funny because when you start to look it up and dig up those old days, you start to find and you start to see like, oh my God, I never realized this guy beat, or my God, my buddy beat this guy. And then, and they're like legendary. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. So very cool, very cool. So let's talk about, Rider of the present. I mean, they had some standouts this year. Ethan Laird, we were a big fan of him. I predicted him to beat Max Dean. I'll tell you that. I posted that out. I knew that was an upset ready to happen. Just because stylistically and in New Jersey, made the national semifinals, which is a good deal. He had a great year. What do you think about him?
Oh, Laird. I mean, obviously, that was tremendous. He had a pretty good season leading up to it. But yeah, being what was it, 19th All-American, something like that, and also doing so, making the semi, wrestling respectable to the eventual national champ. He's like a great spirit too. Like I remember his match with Dean actually. during the season. And I was like, oh, this guy's for real. He's going to be making some real waves. And I think he'd already been to nationals had a couple trips already. So I'm sorry it's his last year, because I feel like, you sometimes you're always like, man, this guy needs one more year,
One more year to get that
Yeah.
title, right? And then,
Yeah.
the big one a couple years ago, Delveccio, came out of nowhere. Ends up pinning Ryan Deacon, who people
Yeah.
had him penciled in as a fire national champs, pins him in the semis, gets to the
Yeah.
finals. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, dude, I don't know if I was talking to Shannon Sofield, another Jersey,
Mhm.
great wrestler, great friend, but I was talking to someone on the phone, and we're watching the tournament. And I was a COVID year, but I got to tell you, I was like, you're just glued to every single match. It was just a different kind of season. But oh my God, dude, I yelled so loud. I think I was holding something. I threw it, and my neighbor checked on me. Like, I screamed so loud because it was such a not even shocker, just like one of those things.
Yep.
Because Deacon's like literally destroying people all year long, and then
Yeah.
see a rider guy go out there. It was one of those moments, like one of those V8 moments, man. You're like, just what just happened? And I was
Yeah.
screaming my head off, but it was wild. And it was just nuts. It was great though.
Yeah, good stuff. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So let's talk. You're from Maryland.
Yeah.
There's another guy that's pretty good from Maryland. We didn't see him. He got the buy out of the final X. We were hoping to see him. Kyle Snyder. What do you think about him? Coming into the World Championships coming up. What do you let's talk a little bit about Kyle Snyder. That's a great athlete right there.
Yeah. I have a great dude. I don't know how much time we have. I need like
Go ahead.
75, 80 minutes to tell the story. No, I'm just kidding. Just like a couple
Yeah.
of seconds. Listen, so I was coaching a team. I was coaching a team for a long time, and I'm doing a tournament. And one of the coaches, rec team coaches, comes up, and I'm coaching high school at the time, and comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, man, you got a guy, pretty good guy, around 152 pounds. I got a guy who wants to get some extra at work in." I said, I got a guy, but he's already been to, state tournament a couple of times. He's been a runner-up twice. He's pretty good guy, and really tough Russian kid I had on my team. And he says, no. He said, that sounds good. I said, let me see if he's got some energy left in the tank. I'll see if he wants to go. Anyway, so we get this match going, and I just noticed that people were starting to gather around. Okay.
Yeah.
My guy goes out, hits this real nice swing single, takes him down, starts riding him, cut him right away. And I'm kind of watching my guy, and he's showboating a little bit. And anyway, so the guy's wrestling. He starts to club on the head a little bit. He starts to push my guy a little bit. We start getting a second period. Next thing you know, okay, it's like 11-5, and now the match is completely favoring the other dude. He starts cutting my guy. My guy wins 12-11. Something like that, 13-11, something like that. We get off the mat, and I come over to the coach. I go, dude, guy's really great, man. I mean, what high school is he at right now? He goes, no, dude, my guy's he's in sixth grade. He's 11. Okay.
Wow.
My guy was like 17 years old, and that was my first meeting of Kyle Snyder. Okay, a headband on, and he's warming up, and I'm looking at this guy's physique. I'm like, all right. So, and then, you talk about all his beast championships, Ironmans, all the stuff he did. And then we're just like watching him grow in Maryland. And then obviously to the complete dynasty that he created, later. So that's kind of my
it's cool telling that story, because that's kind of his style, right? He usually that first period, sometimes he'll be down, and then he just wears guys out and just has that gas tank that gets it done.
Yeah.
So it's cool to hear you even had that back in sixth grade. Didn't get the win, but that's kind of carried him through.
Yeah. By the way, don't tell him I told that story, because he didn't win. I don't want him like looking for me or anything like that.
Coming after you, right? That's all right.
Please.
All right, good stuff, Gregg. I got one last question for you, a little off topic, but we got to talk about this. I think this is the hot story going around right now. Where do you think Gable's going to end up next year? I see him in the Iowa room a while ago. He's coming back. Is he going to be loyal to Minnesota? What are your thoughts? Maybe Ryder or pull him in, right? Get some of that.
You heard? Has that been bubbling up a little bit that he might go to Ryder, dude? I don't know, man. What do they say? It could happen. Maybe not. But I did see a photograph. I don't know, somewhere I landed. It looked like he was in an Iowa room recently, right? I know that may be circulated out there. You know what? I wish him all success. Whatever. They're there are people that go to other programs, right? It
Mhm.
happens all the time. There's some things that are just a good fit. Why you go there, you got to ride the wave like everyone else does. I just wish him all the success, and if we can get another year of watching him and enjoying him, I'm all for it. But if I had my druthers, yeah, bring him back east, man. I don't care. I mean, not Rutgers, but like Ryder or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I mean, I'm happy he's coming back. I mean, Iowa does make a lot of sense to me. I think they're pulling in some big names, and being a part of. They're not going to be Penn State, but at least you're in the conversation, and you got that packed arena if you're looking for exposure and NIL money. Does make a lot of sense. I'd be mad if I was at Minnesota, but it is what it is. We're going to see what happens. But listen,
I'm going to text Hangy to get him.
Get him over there. Get him over there. Morrison just gave that big donation. There you go. Get that going. But yeah, definitely great having you on. Great talking about Ryder. Ryder guys, follow the program. We are the #1 podcast covering Ryder wrestling. We cover Ryder too. We cover Rutgers. We cover Drexel. We cover all these teams. Follow us on Spotify with the podcast. Follow us on Instagram. We're always dropping some memes. And talk to you guys later, man.
Yeah. Thanks again, John. Fun.